Facebook. Hare Krishna, so good to have you with us. So my name is Gopi Gita Schomaker, and I'm here with Manjari Gopika, and we are presenting on behalf of TKG Academy, and we're excited to be with you.
So excited. We're both here in Dallas, Dom, but socially distancing. And Gopi Gita is I think, well-known resource, right? You guys know her. In the educational world, she's a mother of 2 children, a career woman. She's been working in education for, 20 years or something?
Yes, 24 to be exact.
24 years. And you've been at TKG Academy 14 years as vice principal.
And vice principal for less, but is working at the school for 14 years.
And then I know Gopi Gita is also a parenting coach, and she really helped me when I was struggling. I mean, I'm still struggling. That's kind of the idea behind this live series. Where we can ask Gopi Gita our questions. We have a lot of challenges as parents, and apparently it doesn't get easier as the child gets older, is what I'm gathering. There are always going to be new challenges. And then you're parenting in a pandemic, which can be really isolating, and it heightens all kinds of tensions. On top of that, Gopi Gita and I belong to a lineage where we have certain values that we work hard on every day, and we want our children to follow those too. But how do we make it all come together? So that was the inspiration behind this series. So if anybody has any questions, all you have to do is drop them in the comments on Instagram and on Facebook. And are we ready? I have some.
All right, let's get started. So all of you parents who have joined, there's quite a few of us, few who have joined on the Facebook. We've got, I can't see who's at which channel, but we've got a few here. Go ahead, and if you have children, you can say the names of your children. You can talk about how old they are. Please do introduce yourself to us. We're really honored and very excited to get to know you and to talk to you and see how we can be of some service today.
I am a mother of 1. Gopi Gita is a mother of 2. So do let us know what your circumstances are, how many little ones you have at home. But I have some questions, if you all don't mind.
So let's start with the first question.
Okay, here's my first question. So I am a vegetarian. Actually, I'm a vegan. And in our lineage, we don't eat meat, fish, or eggs. And although, it's not like my daughter spends all day watching television or cartoons, but she does watch some cartoons. She's an only child. So anyway, the question is this. I'm wondering how I can really communicate to her in a way that isn't harsh against others about not eating meat. For example, she likes to watch cartoons, and there's some very likable cartoon characters who will be sitting around a table eating a hamburger. And then, I haven't bought her a play kitchen, but she loves to pretend to cook. But in all of the play kitchens, there are fake omelets and things like that. And I can say to her, we don't eat animals, but I don't know. I'm wondering how to communicate in a way that doesn't make it sound like other people are super bad for eating it, because the question's going to come up, well, why? Why do I see these cartoon characters doing it, but we don't do it?
Yeah,
how do you approach that?
First, Manjari Gopika, I love the bhakti inside of your question. And my series, my platform is on bhakti parenting, that everything we do, we want to do with our hearts. We want to nurture our children internally, not just externally with harshness and rules and regulations. And so your question is like requesting, I'm asking my child to be compassionate. How am I going to do that in a compassionate way? And we've all been around those kids who are just like, oh, the meat eaters are demons. And they're just, where it ends up, you create such a black and white paradigm for your child that you actually make them uncomfortable in such a way that they make others uncomfortable. You don't want to be teaching your children, beautiful bhakti principles in a way that they're now making others uncomfortable. So I would say the first thing to do is establish a relationship with your child and animals. Go to the farm. Krishna grew up with cows. So all of our children, they grow up hearing about Krishna's pastimes with the cows and the deer and the monkeys and the peacock, and explain how they all have souls. at TKG Academy, starting with very young, in preschool, kindergarten, first grade, we teach the children that everyone has a soul. We teach them the Bhagavad Gita verses of the second chapter, and we talk about souls, living and non-living. What is the difference in science between living entity and a non-living entity? And that difference is the soul. And if a child gets a bond with an animal, whether through a pet or visiting the farm, talking about cows, listening to Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, then they develop that compassion and that love. And really, if you have that opportunity to foster some kind of a relationship with animals, they'll really see that animals are just as conscious as I am. We went to the farm when my boys were young, and Radhanath Prabhu here at the ranch, he had 2 young cows. And we used to go to New Vrindavan where there were peacocks. I actually took them to Dallas when they were about 6 and 8, my boys, and showed them there's a whole peacock farm. They're just they're as conscious as we are. And so if you connect them first to that, then when someone does eat meat, you can explain, oh, we don't do that, remember? But it's less focused on the we don't do that. It's more focused on the we protect the animals, because the animals are innate loving beings that have Krishna with them. And so it's less of and then they don't question oh, why can't I do it? It's just, oh, our family doesn't practice that, because we know that, they're living beings. So those are my thoughts on that. I don't know if that helps your question or solves your question.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's really fun. How far is the farm from TKG?
There's quite a few farms here. There's a peacock ranch, and I don't know if it's still there, but it's right up at White Rock Lake, and they're white peacocks, and they're beautiful. I was teaching the kids, the boys in the summer one time, the Venum Kvanantam verse of the Brahma Samhita, how Krishna has a peacock feather, and I really wanted them to show them peacocks, and we couldn't drive to New Vrindavan. There's also a safari an hour and a half away. It's open during COVID. You can check that out in Texas. Safaris are really cool ways to go and see animals. We used to go to the zoo, but zoos, the animals are all caged. And, some may feel like that's not a healthy environment for animals to be, or children to be, but even just having a pet, having a pet, hearing about Krishna's pastimes with the animals. So many animals in the scriptures talk. Sukadeva Goswami talks. There's so many talking animals, and so they relate to animals like that.
Thank you so much. I really like that. Not focusing so much on what we don't do, but focusing on what we do, which is acknowledge the souls in all living entities.
Yeah, and then they automatically will internally feel an inherent aversion to meat. And it won't be so much about the judgment that, oh, that person is hurting another animal or killing another animal. It will be more about, oh, I'd like to change the world and teach others to protect the animals, because it'll come from a place of love rather than a place of negative energy and judgment. And so, yeah.
Important. Thank you.
So I'm sure you've had experiences with animals. Have you had any? Have you had any pets growing up, or your daughter? Your daughter's such a wholesome, such a strong, sweet personality.
I wonder where she gets it from. How does she possibly know so much about her own opinions? But, my daughter loves animals. And I swear that probably the only reason my husband married me is because I love cows.
Oh, wow. See?
I sponsor a cow at Care for Cows in Vrindavan. So the inherent loving of animals, I really think it's in all children. I wanted to be a veterinarian growing up. I had a pet cat for a long time. But, my husband is very Brahminical, so it's kind of hard to keep an animal at home. But I love that idea of just going out and seeing the animals in their natural environments. That's really cool.
It's wonderful that you said that because you're vegan, and a lot of devotees who are vegan do it because they don't want the animals to be hurt the way they have been, even for their milk. And I love that you're living what you talk about, Manjari, because the fact that you're sponsoring a cow in Care for Cows, and I assume that's Rupa Raghunath Prabhu's program in Vrindavan. It's really quite sweet. And what's interesting to me is we do also have to express the negative sometimes. We do want to say, yeah, that's not correct what they're doing because they're hurting the animals, right. But we want to minimize that. It is just and then there's also, every family has different values and different principles. it's also nice to teach our children that, hey, this is what we're like. This is what our family's like, and other families are different. It doesn't necessarily mean that that person that you know, grandma or our great uncle or our aunt, is a bad person. They just don't know. And it's also maybe not your job to be the one to tell them. It may be someone else's responsibility to tell them. And so we're going to be very delicate. We don't want to hurt their feelings by telling them something that it's not, we're not their guru, we're not responsible for them. You know, at least she's not. And so that's the way I would play it. Different devotees have different thoughts on this. Those of you who are watching right now, what are your thoughts? How would you explain? Narayan is with us. Hari Bol, Narayan. Narayan, how would you explain? This is an interesting question for you, but how would you explain to your children if they had an uncle that was eating meat? I'm sure you've even experienced it. So yeah, we can move on to another topic if you'd like. Hey, Shabby's here. Nice to see you, Shabby. We're here.
Does anyone watching us have any questions for Gopi Gita? I had a very specific question about something that I've been trying to figure out how to articulate to my child about not eating meat, but doing it in a way that doesn't put down other people. You know, my parents eat meat. They're wonderful grandparents. My daughter adores them. I never want to say, oh, well, meat eaters are bad and selfish, you know, because she's had an experience of meat eaters who are not that. So Gopi Gita really helped me focus on accentuating, just pointing out how the consciousness in all living animals. And so I'd love to know what anybody else has to ask.
Yeah, so go ahead and comment your questions below if you have any comments. We had a few comments that came in. Questions that have come in. There was that one about, I don't remember what the next one was. We could go ahead and explain that.
What question?
Your next question, that one that we had discussed earlier. What was it about?
Oh, I have so many questions. Are we talking the shloka? I did prep Gopi Gita because, you know, don't surprise Gopi Gita, okay? Was it about the shlokas? Is that my question? Was that
Go ahead. I don't remember
or about
one,
gurukul?
but ask me anything.
Or about gurukul? I do have a question about gurukul.
Ask about gurukul. That's good. That's a good one.
Okay. All right. Here's my question. So Gopi Gita is the vice principal of TKG Academy for those of us who are just joining us or perhaps lived under a rock like I did and did not know this very famous woman. She's also a parenting coach. So she's been in education a long, long time in many different aspects of it. So there is a stereotype about gurukuls. TKG Academy is technically a gurukul. Actually, how would you define what is the definition of gurukul?
So gurukuls have a lot of definitions. We're a day school. Technically and traditionally, gurukuls are ashrams or boarding schools where children go from morning, you know, they stay there at night and they're boarding with their teachers. Gurukul literally means the house of the guru, where when you go, you're identifying that this is a time to be getting wisdom and guidance from a spiritual teacher. And so Gurukul can be a day school, it can be a Sunday school. I think these days, Gurukul has just basically been anywhere where you learn bhakti principles and academics at the same time. So
right. Thank you for that. I do not leave my 3-year-old in an ashram at night. So anyway, the point is, I have this question though. There is this perception out there of gurukulis, of children who've grown up in the Hare Krishna movement, rebelling as soon as they can get away from an ISKCON school, they go wild, you know, on the Jersey Shore or something. And my question is, Gopi Gita, you have been a saint since childhood. No, I'm just kidding. But you have, seems like your upbringing has always resonated with you. You never had the desire to rebel. And so I just want to know, what did your parents do right? Because I want that for my daughter to always feel like she has a place here in ISKCON and she's not restricted, but she just has a lot of knowledge.
Again, it comes down to, and it's another great question, because yes, I do remember being 14 and one of my mom's friends asking her, why haven't your kids rebelled? Why won't your kids rebel? Of course, everyone goes, and I definitely did in my 20s and 30s, go through a period of like evaluating all of the principles that I believe in while still sticking with Krishna consciousness pretty firmly, still questioning and reevaluating, because we were raised in an ISKCON society that was very black and white. And it has been a beautiful journey navigating that and identifying what is really to the core of my connection with Krishna and the scriptures, and what is something that was just like drilled into me in my childhood. The trick is really, again, back to bhakti. Instilling bhakti means instilling love in your children. And that means all of their spiritual endeavors, all of the philosophy that you're teaching them, it must be done through love, and it cannot be done through force. And any spiritual endeavor that you try to force your children into, where they're really against it. I'm not talking about routines. I'm talking about actually forcing a child to do something they don't want to do, putting a negative kind of like take on it, a negative expectation on it, like brushing your teeth,
Right.
doing your chores, chant your rounds. Brush your teeth, go to the temple. Why don't you ever go to the temple? Oh, when you're chanting, you're not even pronouncing it correctly. Any type of negativity that's associated with Krishna consciousness is going to backfire on them very strongly.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Is that a difference between Indian parenting and Western parenting? I just like, I feel, and you know, any kind of stereotype is an extreme, right? But I feel like the Western stereotype of parenting is, oh, sweetheart, you're the best colorer I've ever seen. Don't even go inside the lines. Just color how you feel in your heart. And like the Indian extreme is like, you flattened the crayon. You need to be rotating it every 30 degrees so that inside the lines. And so I'm trying to.
And so perhaps it's a collectivistic versus individualistic culture. Perhaps because it's, I see this dichotomy in all cultures. There are Indians that are also on the, oh my God, just do whatever you wish. It's that is, you know, clearly the stereotype for Asians versus Westerners. But I would say that it's more just as a parent about educating ourselves. And we tend to parent the way we were parented. And so it is really our responsibility. When we get a car, we look at the manual. When we get a fridge, we look at the manual. When we get a box from IKEA, we open up the thing and think how to put it together. It's really about taking the time to educate yourself. And my father was Indian. He was born in 1949. And he raised me with a lot of love. And I don't mean love in the sense of let everything go. You still have high expectations. You still are strict, you know, he was still very strict in the home. He had loving, nurturing, high expectations, but nothing in Krishna consciousness with my father was presented in a way to belittle us, undermine us. He saw us naturally, inherently as Vaishnavas, even though I don't know if I am. I still don't consider myself a true Vaishnava, and he always made me feel like I was a Vaishnava. And because he talked to me as an equal in spirituality, I always felt the respect coming from him when it was about doing devotional service. It was never with a negative vibe from my dad. And so I'm really fortunate to have learned that. And I can say that's probably the number one reason why we didn't, you know, quote unquote rebel. This period of rebelling where children are seeking independence, it's a biological, natural need for a child. At age 12 and 14, Bhaktivinoda Thakur at age 12 was running a store. He was getting married. It's just the Industrial Revolution age that we've accepted our children, accepted that our teenagers have to still be like under our thumb, and we can't, even Srila Prabhupada says, treat them like they're your friends at a certain age, at age 15. And so
16. I read that on the TKG page. I'd never heard that before. That at age 16, yes. Prabhupada said, your children become your friends. Treat them as your friends.
Yes, and it's not an automatic thing, you know. It's not like you're automatically, it's a gradual process. When you start seeing your child looking for independence, give him that control, give him that independence. So.
That's really extraordinary. I love how you said that your dad always made you, he treated you like you already were a Vaishnava. Like he wasn't, you know, telling you your tilak is crooked and why did you do it like that? Do you have any specific examples that stuck with you about like where you remember him talking to you?
We woke up at 3:45 in the morning and we went to Mangalarti when we were 4 years old all the way up until we were 12. Gurukul started at Mangalarti time. And I remember it as a happy experience waking up at 3:45. He would sit at my bedside and he would talk to me until I would wake up. He would just tell me stories. And I had heard other parents, other children were being thrown in a shower half asleep. Their sleeping bag will be pulled out, pulling them into the shower and turning on the cold water so they wake up. My dad would be sitting at my bedside telling me a nice story until I woke up. And then once I woke up, Mother Irmela would come with her car and she would take us to the temple. I was 4 and 5, and it didn't seem to be austerity because it just was what it was. And then again, when we were teenagers in North Carolina, we went to Gurukul there. And again, the program for Gurukul, it was Mother Irmela's school, was wake up at 4 in the morning and go to the temple. And I didn't necessarily really enjoy it. I had just come from public school. I was a teenager. I believe I was 15 years old. And the first month was rough. I'd try and fall asleep during the Prema Dwani prayers. But again, my dad was very loving. It was like, we knew that his expectation was that we were going to be at the temple on time. So we knew we needed to get up and get ready, but he never raised his voice. He never, even at that time, I remember him coming into the room, turning the light on, and I remember like getting frustrated that the light has to turn on because you're 15 years old and you want to sleep and you really don't want to go to that Mangalarti. But we had made the choice to go to the Gurukul, and we knew that was the expectation, the requirement. And again, he would stand there and he would just talk to us. And I remember subconsciously realizing he's talking to me to help me wake up. And he would talk to us like interesting things. Like, what do you think about some world issue? What do you think about some friend and their issue? Like, he would actually get me to talk. There's so many things I can say about my dad. In those days in ISKCON, we were not, it was just really strict and we didn't read non-devotee literature. And I was hooked on Nancy Drew, and he didn't like that I read Nancy Drew.
I loved her too.
Yeah. One day my mom found Nancy Drew under my bed. I had a little lamp that I would turn on and like read it and sneak it. And she brought it to my dad, and I thought, oh no, I'm in so much trouble because I know our friends would get in so much trouble if they were listening to non-devotee music. Or I'm glad ISKCON has mellowed out a bit. But my dad sat at the table. I thought, oh my God, I'm in trouble. And I was 16 or 15 at this time. And he sat at the table and he said, hey, tell me about the book. And, I told him what's interesting to you about it? Why is it interesting to you? And then he said, I'm really trying to increase my attachment for Krishna conscious literature. And that's why I read Bhagavatam with you guys every day. We used to, as a family, read Srimad Bhagavatam together. And he's like, I'm just worried that when it's time for me to meet Krishna, that you won't be by my side. And I'd really like to journey this with you. And so Nancy Drew or not Nancy Drew, can we make a commitment to each other that we're going to increase our Krishna Katha? That's literally what he said to me. And it stuck so strongly in my heart that it was all about the love. And it wasn't about like the heavy rules. Yes, there were rules, clearly. We're waking up at Mangalarti for crying out loud. We're not reading non-devotional literature. But I was immersed in Shastra because of my dad. And he spent actual positive, practical time with me in learning the Shastra. And I could go on forever with stories about my childhood. I feel really blessed to have the parents that I did.
That's really extraordinary. That really resonates with me. Instead of just being like, this isn't Krishna conscious and throwing the book in the fire, it was like, why are you reading this? What are you getting from it? Like, what are you seeking exactly? And here's why I have chosen to spend my reading time reading Krishna Katha. And I think that we should do that together as a family. That's amazing. I love that.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment here. We've got our yoga teacher here with us on Instagram. Shabi's here, and she's so cool. The way she teaches yoga to the first grades and up, she literally makes it a total, very, very clear meditation zone. Like they're not disturbed, and they understand how they take it so seriously. Shabi, you're an example of this, of what I'm speaking of, and I'm so glad you're with us. I've noticed how you're strict, but very loving. And you give that seriousness to the kids, but at the same time, it's not done in a way of force. It's just, hey, this is our sacred space right now. This is time to reflect and take care of our bodies and take care of our minds and meditate. And I just wanted to point that out because you're with us. And I see who else is here. Official Amber Chabra. So nice to have you. So nice to have you with us as well.
That's special gift. I'm also a yoga teacher, but I do not teach children. I would also say I'm like the Gopi Gita of the yoga world. I'm not at all.
Yes, you
But
are.
I think any teacher has to be strict and loving, you know.
Yeah.
But you have to do it in a way that shows, like what you're saying about your dad. Like a good teacher is strict. They don't let you get away with anything because they know you're capable of so much more. Like, you know, at least that's my approach when I'm teaching.
That's key, what you're just saying, that it's communicated in a way that you're capable of so much more, and I trust that we can reach your highest potential.
Right.
Not the denigrating, negative, how are you doing that? Why are you doing that? You suck kind of vibe that tends to come out with all of us, man. We're all real. We're all parents. We all have those moments where we're just like, this sucks. This kid sucks. But
I'm so glad I'm not alone.
It's just a constant reminder to ourselves. And I think if we ourselves feel that we don't suck and that we kind of like rewind all of that bad negative talk that was given to us in our childhood, it's easier to speak positively and peacefully and lovingly to our children.
That's so true. We're running short on time, friends. We do have time though to take a question from the floor. I would love to know what's on your minds. What have you always wanted to ask someone like Gopi Gita, who's been a teacher forever? Or what's a new challenge for you that's come up because of the pandemic? Because parenting is always hard. It's always going to be hard. But I don't know about you, but I could really go for some precedented times. I've really had enough of firsts and unprecedented things. So if anybody is... You know, I want an old-fashioned problem where they like, you know, kids throw paper airplanes on a school bus at each other or something. I'd love that.
You'll definitely find some old-fashioned problems at TKG Academy. Thank God, you know, like we have those. Paper airplanes. We did have one. I remember one group of kids that were always throwing paper airplanes. And so we ended up making a whole scrap section, like a scrap paper section, and actually teaching them different types of, oh my God, that was Nitai's class. And that's where he started learning origami, now that I'm remembering, because we got into paper folding and we turned it around. It's just really life.
Have you ever heard of such a thing, people? Of a child misbehaving, but then they turn it into an origami lesson. This is the magic of TKG Academy. If that's not compassionate teaching, I don't know what is.
It's really life. Manjari Gopika, my life has been so up and down and dramatic. Life is about seeing the challenges, grabbing them, and turning them into opportunities. And so I'm starting to be excited about challenges. I'm scared to say that live because I feel like the universe is Krishna.
He's going to turn you into Queen Kunti now. You've done it now.
Be all like, okay, you just said it, you put it out there, right? But really, life is about taking challenges and turning them into opportunities. And you can do that, and you teach your kids how to do that. Literally, math is all about problem solving. They just go from one problem to the next for years on end. They start looking forward to it. My niece is doing calculus right now, and he's like talking to me about limits, and he was so scared of calculus, and so it can happen.
Right.
All right. Wow.
I am live on Instagram and Facebook. Yes, she's on her way.
Okay.
They're coming now. I am live on Facebook.
She's got two. So Manjari Gopika, what you guys may not know is that Manjari Gopika has got a little 3-year-old, and she's also been parenting her little 3-year-old excellently. Such a beautiful little girl. Do we have any other questions coming in at this point, or are we ready to end our session? I think it's time to go.
Well, leave us a comment for anybody who's watching this after the fact, you know, and what came up for you. What really resonated with you? For me, it was how Gopi Gita responded to my meeting question. Actually, it all resonated. Your dad and how to really talk about values as a family, not from a place of attack, but from a place of let's examine what we're really looking for and where we can find those answers. Thank you so much, Gopi Gita, Vice Principal at TKG Academy, parenting coach. She has a website, just Google her. But more importantly, send us your questions, and we'd love to do this again next week.
All right, we will be back Friday at 4:30, and don't miss us. And we will be giving you all kinds of things, student spotlights and teacher spotlights and parent spotlights, and having all kinds of fun. So join us, and we will see you later. Thank you so much.
Haribol.
Haribo. Hare Krishna.